online நேரத்துக்கு யார் நம்மள ரிங் பண்றா?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the viewers who have joined us in our YouTube channel. Today we have the special guest, Dr. Sakthi, who is the Public Health Director in Lancashire. As you all know, he did a wonderful discussion on the episode 1. We have discussed so many things, and in fact, we have gone to quite a deep discussion. Few of the viewers said, this discussion is a little bit too much for me, and you should be touching some basics for the naive people who are not exposed to meditation and what is oneness and those things. And we have few other most important topics also to cover today. Thank you, Sakthi, for your time. Please welcome. How was the week, Sakthi? Was it a busy week? How do you feel your week is going on? I hope the COVID pandemic is settling down. I hope it will give you more breathing space and to spend your time on something which you are interested.
Yes, the breathing space is constant. The week's been good. We are hopeful that the cases are going to continue to reduce and the restrictions will be eased. And then the good news also is more people are getting the vaccines. So it is very good and developing picture, but we still need to remain alert to the virus. There's quite a lot of people working age not got the vaccine. So washing hands, watching the space and wearing a face mask and following the distancing, all of that is going to be really important for some months to come. But thank you for asking.
Thank you, Sakthi. Today we discuss few important things, Sakthi. Let us start with children. And last week we discussed about the age, which is the correct age for the children to start the practice. And now, as you know, if you take on an average, children spend almost like 8 hours to 10 hours in school or communicating to school, maybe in a school bus or in the parents' car. And then they spend again another 8 hours or sometimes even more than that in sleeping. And so the rest of the time, morning 3 hours, evening 4 hours, they spend with the family, and sometimes that also taken up by the school homework. So in this busy schedule, if you want to introduce the concept of yoga and meditation to children, I think the best place should be we should steal some hours from the school. What do you think about introducing this as a curriculum in the school so that students will be automatically inculcated? And there is a good chance students may hear better when it is from the teachers rather than from the parents or uncle or granny, isn't it?
That's quite right. I think the opportunities for children to develop new habits is there mainly in the schools, but also in the family home. School curriculum have already got the PSHE part in the schools, and introducing yoga as a theme, as part of that curriculum, has got a number of benefits. And there are some schools that are already starting to do that. So we may see more and more schools taking this up. Not only for the physical benefits, the physical health benefits, but also for as a social activity. When you do it with friends, it's likely to stick in your mind. Hopefully as a good memory, you can carry it on for the rest of the life. But also from a concentration perspective, attention perspective, when we train our mind and breath, it is also good for their grasping capacity and attention, and preventing from mind wandering and so on. So it has got a number of benefits in terms of starting younger. And clearly, when children learn something in schools, they also take it home. So there is potentially wider societal benefit in introducing our children to yoga. Particularly also as they grow, and we in this world, in the modern times, we are constantly bombarded with information, peer pressures, and there's almost not much time left to actually think about oneself. And I think some of the yoga practices will help children develop their critical thinking and become better leaders of tomorrow. So there are a number of benefits by introducing yoga and meditation in schools.
Yeah, perfectly said, Shakti. In my view, the school should be the place where a child can improve the qualities, know some new things, and learn the techniques for the life. Unfortunately, as of now, school curriculum predominantly spends on like science, maths, which will be very useful in the normal life. If they are going to Sainsbury's and buy something, they should know how to calculate the price and how to get the correct change back. But having said that, there are a lot of challenges in the life. Like, for example, as a doctor, we are doing like annual appraisals. We need to make sure that we are making a note of whatever we have done correctly. And physical health, some of our friends may get some financial problems. Whenever we get these problems, we need a lot of help from our mental ability to help with the normal problems day-to-day life. Unfortunately, I don't think school is taking that personality and mindfulness part. In fact, on the other hand, sometimes school life will be very treacherous, and people I've seen preparing for A levels, GCSE exams, really losing their quality of life and aging few years in that 1 year of exam preparation. If they are taught about this meditation and yoga starting from little bit younger age, like year 8 or year 9 age, that will help them to face these exams as a viaduct to show the talent rather than a kind of a fearful atmosphere and somebody is testing. So I think that, as you said, improving the mental capacity and removing the fear from life, I think the yoga has a main role, isn't it, Shakti?
I mean, that's right. Schools and education system these days is very, very different to what they were even a few years ago. And I think there's a wider societal conversation and a commitment we need to have to introduce some of these lifelong learning skills. Better start at school or younger age, but equally the family has a role here, and employers, and as the child grows, it is about embedding these kind of life skills, if you will, as part of one's development. And clearly, there's a lot of focus on education that is scientific and helps you earn a living, which is quite important. But the wider aspects of lifelong learning skills, there is really a lot of room for improvement as a society that we can make. And there are already schools that are starting to do that. Perhaps a conversation with schools and the academies and like-minded people might help to spread it further.
Thank you, Shakti. Just growing from the childhood to a kind of a teenage or adulthood, if a parent wishes his son or daughter wants to join the yoga program, we discussed this last time also, we will again place the phone numbers and the contact details to make for the parents. Even the direct children can directly contact us in the description of this video. Now, the question is, if the child becomes very much interested in yoga, the parents are a little bit worried whether the child will get dissociated from the normal life and whether he will lose that impetus to have a kind of a strive for academic excellence, professional excellence, competitive world. I find it quite contrary. I find the yoga and meditation will really equip the child to become a better performer in an interview, to get a better post and academically strive well. But there is a small kind of very fixed low group thinking saying that, oh, this will make my child a bit numb. This will make my child more inward, and the competitiveness and the rashness will disappear. And how can we demystify this?
I think the parents, when they probably experience some of the practices and they learn this simplified Kundalini yoga, will very soon or immediately, even in the first session, realize this is not about dissociating oneself from the day-to-day life. If any, this is about preparing ourselves better for everyday life and excel in anything we want to achieve. And it is certainly not something that would certainly made me or anybody that I know leave everything that they've been doing and dissociate and detach themselves and start sannyasam or something. It is not the case. These are practical techniques, keeping yourselves, your physical health well, and also to help one think carefully and critically about what we are experiencing in everyday life, and to excel in our decision making, to excel in our mindsets, and to develop that love and compassion and kindness and a sense of gratitude towards others and the nature. So this is completely the reverse of what you just said at the beginning. This is not about dissociating oneself and detaching from everyday life. In fact, this is equipping oneself and preparing oneself for everything that can get thrown at us in our lives, and to face it really well with the courage and excel in everything we face. So in India, there are specific programs for children as well during summer holidays and so on. But here we are only a small group of teachers, and we're just starting off. But perhaps the time will come when we can have specific programs for our children and young people. But I'd recommend parents bringing along their children, especially if you've got a child that can actually sit and listen and take part in activities and not very young. It's quite fun actually having children around, and the whole experience becomes even more a joyous one.
Thank you, Shakti. I remember seeing your daughter during one of our session in Birmingham, and she really made that whole hall more youthful, I will say, because all are like grown-up adults. Everybody is focused on what can I get from this? How can I improve my kriyas? How can I improve my wavelength? How can I improve my energy level? But she was just playing around. It's so nice to have somebody, as you said, and it's nice to keep them on the side. And the parents can't have the reason that I have no time because I have a child to take care, and now they can bring the child also to the yoga program. That's very nice and nicely said. Now let us slowly grow along with the child. And the other question what the parents will feel is, now my daughter is 22 years, my son is 25 years, we are looking for alliance, we are looking for marriage. And after starting yoga, they not seems to be in the path of like having a girlfriend or love marriage. And when we try to arrange a marriage, we are a bit worried whether they will say no to this and try to lead a bachelor life. Yes, age-old tradition, people have left the family and also sometimes led a bachelor life throughout their life. But things are changing, and now the modern thinking is we can easily create a very nice family atmosphere, run the family, and also excel in the spiritual path. What is your take on it, Shakti?
That's a very good question and a very important one. The unique thing about Maharishi's teaching in Simplified Kundalini Yoga, it's actually yoga for the common man. It doesn't involve sannyasam and leaving everything and going away. It actually involves having a very happy family life. If someone starts young, and there are lots of people that I know that have started young and haven't left and went off and left everything and there's no ashram, for example, in Simplified Kundalini Yoga. If anything, there are courses and residential courses, but there's nothing like you suggest in terms of not being interested in family life. In fact, this whole thing, Simplified Kundalini Yoga, has been made so much more accessible for a common family man, for a common family woman. And starting young is a wonderful opportunity, actually, to live the rest of the life in peace, in harmony, and actually understanding of each other. So the family life actually flourishes once someone starts practicing some of the techniques. First of all, they are well, so they're not dependent on others to look after them, if you will. And then the second one, the mindset and the mental practices, the introspection practices, prepares one for managing relationships better. For example, managing one's anger better, eradicating one's worries more. And they don't not only become better than themselves, but they become very resourceful for the people around them. So it is perfectly, practicing simplified Kundalini yoga is perfectly matched and prepares one for the active family life that most of us have. So there is no issues there. And if there are any further questions on that, we can certainly speak to friends on a one-to-one basis to help clarify what this is. This is certainly not about wearing a kavi dress and leaving everything and going to an ashram and becoming really just inward looking. Simplified Kundalini yoga is a yoga for human excellence, and it ultimately is about having that inner peace so one can lead one's life really happily, healthily, and amass wealth, adequate wealth, and also start giving to other people around us. So it's a really important dimension of yoga that needs clarifying. Unfortunately, either yoga is seen as just rolling up your yoga mat on a Wednesday evening as a leisure activity once a week, or the other extreme, which is you leave everything and you go somewhere and sit in the hills and meditate and never come home. It's neither of them. It actually prepares one to lead their lives in a far better way and in a good relationship.
Thank you, Shakti. Now, let us assume the child which we are discussing is now grown up and in the early 30s. I think the early 30s and mid 30s are a very important part in the life, because most of us will have a kind of family which is settled but not settled. Children too small, so needs a lot of caring, exposed to the new group of relatives in the form of in-laws and extended in-laws family, and possibly a new job or maybe a second job after the failure of the first attempt to get a good job. So this early 30s and mid 30s are quite challenging. And sometime from the dawn to dusk, if we put our full energy on it, that is merely enough to maintain and tick all the appointments. And so how can a person who is in that early stage, not well settled, but in the correct path, to inculcate the yoga? And do you think if they say we can spend only the weekends, Monday to Friday, sorry, it's completely full, do you think the weekends are enough, or do you advise weekends do as much as you can, but in the weekdays also spend at least 30 minutes, if not 40 minutes, something like that? What is your take?
See, this is like, say we are a pilot and we are flying a plane. Is it enough to check all the things are working once in every 10 flight journeys as a pilot? Or are we better off just checking all the aspects every time we fly? It's a bit like that. But there's no prescribed ways. The more we practice, the more benefits that we accrue. And it is also not the case that you've learned it and then you're really not able to practice. We would advise that at least one should set aside an hour for every day to look after their own self. That's what it's all about. It's not about practicing this for somebody else's sake. It's for one's own sake. So I understand people have more times during the weekends and therefore be able to go deeper into it or know more about it. But these are very simple exercises that can be split during the day as well, depending on how one fits that in their lives. But there are some simple practices like Kaya Kalpa, which is very much about vitality and maintaining the energy, and only takes 3 minutes. So there are some, we can adapt ourselves to yoga and yoga to ourselves, and that's the beauty of it. And there's no set ways of, if you do this, this will happen. If you don't do this won't happen. Yes, that there is an element of that which is really purely associated with practice, and the more one practices, the more one experiences the benefits of it. And if they are not able to practice, then at least practice when they can, would be my advice. But keep keep with it. And quite a lot of times people think that there is a magic yoga pill and you do it once and then every problem will get sorted. That may be an issue, but this is about cultivating a new habit. This is about developing our own personalities and character, and in the long run, changing the way we live our lives and the rest of the society as well for good. So it does need a regular practice to accrue all the benefits. But if you're not able to, for any reason, maybe people may be traveling, there are some simple things you can embed as part of your daily routines. And we can discuss that for individual circumstances when we have classes and when we are able to meet.
Thank you. That's well said. Now, let us assume that the child we are discussing is entering into the 40s. To me, the 40s are very challenging, at the same time, very interesting period. The reason is there are few things clearly ticked. Life settled. I don't think if somebody is not settled with a spouse by the age of 40 or mid 40, it's very difficult later on. And one or two children or more children, but children are a little bit grown up, able to take care of themselves, maybe traveling on their own to the school, something like that. And the job is now nice. You are considered as one of the senior member in your team. So that is also ticked up. So there is a kind of opening of space to breathe. So a lot of people, to my knowledge, embrace yoga and meditation only in 40s because that's where they find the time and taking all the basics of the life. And on the other front, if somebody is labeled as an enlightened person, knowing Brahma, knowing who am I, as per Ramana Maharishi's words, these things also start happens only in, say, mid 40s to late 40s or sometimes later 50s. What is your take on that kind of maturity which is happening in 40s? Do you think that is the age minimum required for a person to realize who am I and those Brahma kind of thinking? Or if you think we can even train a 20-year-old to understand those concepts, what is your take on it?
Yeah, that's a very big question. I'll try my best to answer, and there are some senior masters that may be able to answer it better than I do. See, this is not something that's a formula, and it has got a clock in it. And at certain age, only at certain age, this is accessible in terms of self-realization for humanity. I've known people that are in their 20s, and we've known characters in our history of certainly Indian history, people that are really self-realized at much younger ages. It is related to the time, mainly about how much time one can spend in knowing oneself and knowing more about the world and develop that critical thinking. Perhaps it takes time, but it certainly doesn't appear to me like you can only achieve self-realization in your 40s and not before, or you can't, for that matter. There's another saying, isn't there, that you can't teach old dog new tricks, and that is also not quite true in my experience. That these are easily learnable skills, and the more one practices, the more one is able to experience and achieve those or access those avenues of thinking and faculties. So self-realization is a very subjective matter as well. Just because somebody claims that they are self-realized, it doesn't, it's not easily accessible in that sense. Ultimately, this comes down to one's behavior and attitude towards oneself, and one's behavior and attitude towards the people around them and the nature around them. So only through behaviors we can understand others' emotions, thoughts, and feelings, and even words. So this is something that is very much made accessible through Maharishi's teachings in terms of simplified Kundalini Yoga. One starts with simplified physical exercises and learn meditative practices and contemplative practices. And then that helps people to think and introspect about their thoughts, their desires, how one self-regulate themselves in terms of anger management and eradication of worries. And ultimately, this is about asking questions why a number of times and trying to understand how everything works, and developing a philosophy of life for oneself. So once that practice happens, it is possible. And I know people who are normal, ordinary people, we would say, who are very peaceful and very helpful to others. And they would say that the more we practice, the more it is possible to actually inculcate those traits and characters. So this is not all about nature. This is also about human will. And I know I've gone on a number of dimensions on this one, and it probably is also something that is only experienceable and not really explainable as well.
Thank you, Shakti. That's well explained. Unfortunately, or in other words, fortunately, there is no exam for enlightenment. We both are doctors. Once we pass MBBS, we know that we are doctors. That's it. Nobody needs to question us. And as long as we maintain the standards and pay whatever the GMC fees every year, we are still doctors. But for enlightenment, there is no exit exam. And as you correctly said, how a person carries himself and how he deals himself and the friends and families are the main telltale sign of the enlightenment. And also there are various definitions, and somebody can claim they are enlightened, but other person can challenge it. And end of the day, it's something which you need to prove yourself rather than proving to others. Now, the child which we are discussing is reaching 50s. Let us take two possibilities. The child never exposed to yoga or meditation in the mid 50s started showing some changes in HbA1c, early diabetes, tiredness. And what is your advice on that person? That is number one. The second question is the person who is nicely performing and able to lead the life in a very comfortable manner. Fortunately, possibly there is no diseases, and but wishes to do something more and feels like, yes, I'm doing this yoga for 20 years now. I'm 56, I'm 57, but I'm happy. But is it? That's it. Can we have something more? It's like that, like a dessert after a full buffet meal. So please take me through the first one. A person who never exposed to yoga, but at the age of 57, after seeing the first rise in HbA1c or shooting up of blood pressure and graying of hair, wishes to start something. And what is your view?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen a lot of people who have ticked along really nicely in their early years, and then once they reach 50, then issues starts appearing. It's a bit like, just to stick with the analogy of driving a motor car, maybe as the car ages, or even a computer for that matter, some of the hardware gets weary. And in yoga, there's a concept called Mahir Bhogam. And Mahir Bhogam is having limit and method in 5 domains of living: food, how active we are, our sleep quality, our thoughts, and our sexual life. And in any of these 5 dimensions, if the limit and the method is not a balanced one, then that is known to cause much, almost every single, apart from some of the genetic disorders and some of the accidents that we face, is associated with all the other diseases and discomforts and pain and what have you. So at that point in time, if the wider non-medical, which is becoming more common these days, that it's not just a pill that you get prescribed, you also get a social prescription, which is, do something that is meaningful to you, and connect with nature, go for a walk, read a book, or engage in some kind of voluntary activity and that sort of thing. That's when people normally in the Western world, they get exposed to yoga as one of those many things that I've just listed. And as we know, as we saw in the last episode, practicing yoga regularly has benefits on one's musculoskeletal system, and therefore balance, fitness, and all of that health benefits that comes with it. And some of those things are pre-diabetic factors. What you just said, overweight is one of that. Not just musculoskeletal benefits of yoga, but also more self-awareness and self-regulation. So you're able to moderate our behaviors, particularly that craving for that chocolate, that fourth chocolate that one might have, or change behaviors in terms of lifestyles and what we eat and how we sleep and so on. And relaxation is another good one in the Sky Yoga. One really helps. It helps one really relax deeply. So all of this are associated with and contributing to remaining well, reverse some of the things, but mainly preventing illness happening if it's picked up at an early stage. It shouldn't be seen as a replacement for the current scientific knowledge and in terms of treatment, and that would be, that would not be advised because these are things that we've stored up for 50 years, like you said, and it can't just disappear in 50 hours or 5 days or 5 minutes. So it certainly is a complementary practice one can have and benefit from in that scenario. The other scenario is you referred to as somebody practicing yoga for a long time and now they're craving for what more. Actually, if somebody has been practicing simplified Kundalini yoga for such a long time, there's not going to be any craving because this is not about more and more and more. This is it's more about inner peace and more about giving to the rest of the community. And there is still quite a lot of social problems that we have, from poverty to lack of education to loneliness, and helping somebody to build their skills up for preparing for jobs, and looking after Mother Nature, which is another big threat that humanity faces. So if someone has the time, not only yoga helps, simplified Kundalini yoga, that is, helps one to remain well, but ultimately this is about achieving world peace through inner peace. So, and the possibilities are limitless. That's how I would say, if you're in your 50s and you've done your yoga, probably if you're still wanting to do more, you probably go back and visit what yoga actually means, which is to remain in balance between oneself, the society, and nature, and the possibilities are limitless.
That's very nice. I'm sure those who are in late 50s or early 60s seeing this video will get inspired to say, okay, there is nothing late and we can start at any time. And the fruit may not be as good as those who are starting in their schools or the school age, but there is definitely, the doors are not closed at any age. Now, the child we are discussing is reaching, say, mid 60s or early 70s, retired from the job, plenty of time, can do yoga for 10 hours a day or meditate for 5 hours a day, but that's where the body is not cooperating, and whatever we do, there will be some joint pain, can't able to sit, squat in the floor, and things will start play up. If I take up something like a parallel corollary, there are some historical Indian stories which says like the husband and wife will be moving out from their home and they do what is known as the Vana Prasadam, where they will just go to the forest and lead a very more naturalistic life, more meditation, natural food, and then they just disappear. They won't be living in their home because there is a next generation, and if not a third generation, to take care of whatever is pending. So what is your advice for the people in the 70s, and is there still a possibility to start something new when we have the retirement life?
Of course, one of the things that keeps us well is learning something new. Learning something new stretches the brain, develops curiosity, and if your physical body allows, get really involved in that. And learning something new can never stop until the last breath, perhaps. So people in their early 70s, when we're young, we give back to the society through our physical work. We go to work, we earn money, we pay taxes, we look after many aspects of societal life, including children's education, but also older people's care. But when one gets older, it's they can still keep giving, but not through perhaps physical efforts, but through their intellectual efforts, and share the experiences that they've got over the course of their lives, and learning something new. And actually, if you have been practicing yoga, you should be able to sit for a long time. This is all about remaining well without pain and discomfort and disease for as long as you possibly can. And yes, ultimately humans age, but we can all have a healthy aging and not have any pain at all till the last. And that should be our ambition. We almost take it for granted that if you are above 70, and sadly that is true, most of us have some long-term condition or the other, and problems in life that have been accrued that's not been dealt with. But actually, that doesn't have to be the case. And it's all in our minds and in our practice. So people in their 70s can still take up yoga if they haven't done it so far, and they'll still benefit from it. But who have done this will obviously realize that this is about a way of life. This is about giving to others as well when you can't, when you're no more at work, and if you have time in hands, perhaps that's the time to give younger children in the family or in the community, or maybe take up another social activity to give back through their intellectual experience they've gained. I think this is about healthy aging, and yoga does help one age really, really well and peacefully.
Oh, I like your term healthy aging. And there is also another term which I used to use is like age gracefully, and make sure that you look young as you get old, and also make sure that you are more supportive for others rather than dependent on others. And I'm sure yoga and meditation will really help to achieve a kind of a graceful aging. I mean, we started this discussion mainly thinking about how we can help children, because children are like fertile land. Whatever you sow, they just reap, and the onus on the parents and the elders to make sure that we are taking care of the children correctly. Somehow we ended up talking decade by decade and reached now the seventh decade, which is not really planned. And thank you for your cooperation in leading in that discussion. But if we discuss like this, we should discuss at least up to 120, if not 150 years. That's what yoga promises us. And so I don't want to take your time taking to 80s, 90s, and hundreds and 100s individually. But in a general manner, my view is by the time if a person is almost frail, but quite calm and powerful inside because of the yoga and meditation practices. And they should realize what is life, what is rebirth, what is the connection between the birth and life and the ultimate supreme power and those things. And it's very important, I think they say, what the people think and what they spend in the last few hours before the death is very important. That's why in hospice, in hospitals, we try to invite the relatives and spend the time with the family and friends and people who like. Unfortunately, the COVID created a kind of a big handicap in that aspect, but hopefully we should not have such a pandemic in the future. What is your view on that? The last few hours or months, it's better to understand completely and have a very peaceful end, isn't it?
It certainly is, and lots of people, I know some of my colleagues have really gone into the depths of end-of-life care, and I've read a book written by one of the colleagues that work in end-of-life care, and basically they've asked people, so what would be your last wishes, and what would you have done differently? And it's really interesting what the response is. Even in those moments, people most often have said, I wish I hadn't worked so hard. I wish I had given some time to myself. I wish I had spent time with my friends. And I'd wish I was myself. And all of these things, when I was reflecting, the other day, it felt to me like this is something that if someone has really taken on to knowing oneself and serving the family and the community and society, these are all things that in those moments we look back with peace and with happiness. And so that makes me think that the ending could only be happier and peaceful with the families and friends surrounding you. So I certainly think if one is thinking on their deathbed, looking back, practicing a peaceful life would only leave them in a more peaceful state than anything else. Because by nature, what we're talking about here is looking after oneself. So in those moments, one would have reflected that they lived a pain-free life, disease-free life, perhaps. And it's also about doing good to others. So one would reflect, or others that are around them would reflect what legacy that they're leaving in terms of the relationships and the impact that they've created on the younger generation and people around them. And then the third one would be even more better, in my view, that if we had done something that is better for the nature and to remain in harmony for the rest of the humanity in terms of how we look after the nature and the environment around us. So I think from my perspective and what I've learned from my masters and Maharishi's teachings and Vedatrium is this gives you access to avenues that helps you remain in good health and the inner peace that everybody seeks to achieve. But not only that, but it gives us the opportunity to appreciate with gratitude whatever is around us and the role of other human beings around us. And not only that, even more is to appreciate the nature around us and to do good to the nature and to live in a real harmony with the nature around us. So that's what's really this is all about. And it helps one excel in everything one tries to pick up. And it helps one to have the right attitude and approach to all the problems that we face in life, but also discover new insights, innovate and excel, and hopefully leave this world in a better place than we find it.
Thank you, Shakti. We are almost reaching the climax of our story. And let us assume that the child which we discussed started yoga and meditation in school, excelled well, did kind of a mastery in the second or third decade, and able to do serving the humanity in the fourth or fifth decade, helping other peoples, and in the sixth decade is living a very peaceful life that he or she has contributed a lot to the community and happiness. And as you said, and you accepted, yoga is giving us a warranty of maybe at least 120 years of life. And if someone can maintain the mind and body healthy, there is no reason to die, isn't it? So as a last climax question, I'm going to take you into a very intriguing concept of separating ourselves from our body voluntarily. So those who have mastered the yoga, they can decide when they want to leave. They can decide when they want to, we can't use the word die, but when they want to die in a layman term. And they can leave the body and have a kind of merge into the universal energy or the Brahman in a voluntary fashion. And till the last second, the body will be healthy and no problem in the muscles. I mean, we felt healthy aging or aging gracefully is a great thing. And somebody can even gracefully live without aging at the age of 120, isn't it? What is your take on this extreme, nice yoga performance and exhalations?
Certainly, I haven't reached and experienced that to share my personal experiences. But what I've learned from masters and people who have documented these things, you can look at it at different levels this. One is just understanding the law of nature. If there is a birth, there is a death. Especially if you're a human being, there is a limit to certain certain aspects in this universe. But that is at one level, which is at a physical level. But equally, we know we live with so many ideas and thoughts of the people that left before us. All look around, all the inventions, these are all ideas of humanity. The way that our homes are designed, the way our cars are designed, the people who actually had the ideas are no more, but they're still living in that sense. So that's the second plane where you can understand how people live longer than in their physical bodies, if you will. And the idea, and certainly in ancient history, it is documented, this concept of jiva samadhi, where the body doesn't, is still there, but there's no life, but the energy is there. I am researching all those things to understand what is the sort of frame of thinking behind that. What's the philosophy behind our ancestors thinking that? And there does appear to be something that is not quite amenable to the scientific tools that we currently have to grasp that. So that is probably a quest that will live on forever until, of course, there is an experiential way of seeing that. But these are all concepts that we can have as quests and questions that until one gets satisfactory answer to oneself, there is no need to actually blindly believe in what other people say. And clearly, to benefit from yoga, you don't have to have that kind of level of belief. You can experience benefits of yoga at a physical level very soon, and it is one's choice to explore these concepts. But I certainly think there's more critical thinking that's needed as a human society, especially in bringing some of the Eastern classical Indian philosophies and placing that and locating that in more modern Western thought-based philosophies to understand in totality how humans have conceptualized life and life before birth and life after death. And I think that is something that one needs to go on the journey. And I'm very sure that once we start understanding what our ancestors meant, we may be able to experience that. Probably a lot of those things have been lost in translation. So still more work to do for us.
Thank you, Shakti. That's a very nice ending. If you permit me, Shakti, I will just try to explain my understanding of this Jiva Samadhi. As we discussed in the first episode, we have like physical body and subtle body and the causal body. So mostly we live in our physical body, morning calls, going to office, for me, seeing patients, working with colleagues. And during the meditation and yoga, I spend a lot of my time in my subtle body, strengthening it, and Kaya Kalpa strengthens it, and Kriya makes sure that the energy is nicely represented the whole body. And during the meditation, we can take ourselves into the causal body. I think my understanding of the Jiva Samadhi is a person associate himself with the causal body, at least during the time of the separation, so that the subtle body gets stuck to the physical body, and that's why physical body still maintains that vigor. There are some reports of the skin remaining supple, the hair grows perennially, and even bleeding happens whenever that body is disturbed a bit.
Yes.
So yeah, so maybe that gives a kind of an explanation.
In simple terms, if you think about it as body, mind, and life energy, basically the mind becomes very subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle, and the mental functions stop, but the life energy still is there in the physical body. and therefore the body is fresh and the energy is still there. And that's been that is the sort of concept behind Jiva Samadhi, and there are very few people that have achieved that in the past. And you normally see that in temples, particularly the olden temples, where there's almost a Jiva Samadhi in many of the famous temples in India, where it's thought that some of the ancient saints and siddhas have attained Jiva Samadhi, Jivan Mukti, and the energy is there, and each one of them is associated with a particular dimension of life and the energy that we're all seeking to achieve. So that is the concept. In simple terms, body, mind, and spirit or life energy. The mind frequency reduces through various psychic contemplative practices, and therefore the mental function doesn't exist. However, the life energy is still there in the body, is the concept behind Jiva Samadhis.
Yes. In fact, I have read through the list of the best performing temples, especially in South India, like Tirupati or Madurai Meenakshi Temple or Srirangam, Parani, especially, as you said. Parani, I remember they relate to Bogar, and that they have kind of a fixed yogis in relation. And in fact, they believe even though people go and see the statue of the god or goddess and pray, the whole prayers are answered because of the power from the Jiva Samadhi. And I wish to complete this. I mean, I'm trying to complete this discussion for the past 20 minutes, to be honest, but something or other is coming to my mind, and I hope you have time to spend another 10, 15 minutes. Last episode, we discussed about the karmas. And as I said, my understanding is the karmas are more to deal with the subtle body. And so by attending the Jiva Samadhi, if you're able to lock your subtle body with your physical body, that's where your whole package of karma, the Sanchita karma, is getting locked, and no way the karma will be a reason for another rebirth, and that results in a kind of a stage where there is no rebirth, and that's where our causal body reaches the absolute magnanimous situation. So I'm just trying to relate our first episode discussion on karma with this same concept of reincarnation and reaching the ultimate almighty.
Okay, I'll try my best. Karma, put it in simple words, it's the imprints that we receive from our ancestors in the evolution, and the imprints since our birth, because of the impurities in those imprints, the way that we see the life and behave and make decisions brings us pain or pleasure depending on the imprints. And just tying that back, so that is what your Sanjita karma and Prarabdha karma is, and then how we use that in our daily lives is the Akamiya karma, which is based on the Sanjita karma and Prarabdha karma. You accrue more based on your actions. Linking that to how yogis have lived their lives, the goal is to remove all the sinful imprints during one's life by practicing meditation, doing good to others, changing the behaviors, and therefore expiating all the sinful imprints is the concept. Once there are no more sinful imprints, which is a very rare achievement these days, all you have left is good imprints. And linking this to another concept, which we probably won't have time to go to today, is the genetic center and the life energy and all of that. When there is only good imprints left, and when one in that state reduces the mental frequency to the point where somebody is attaining that Jiva Samadhi, then the vibration and the energy is thought to give only good imprints to others, or remove the simple imprints. I mean, this all takes not just at a mental level, but it needs action. So we can sit and learn about all these things and gain the knowledge, but if we don't act, every one of us carries those imprints. So we have to act in removing those imprints. And then the thinking is that if you have removed all your sinful imprints, then all that is left is goodness. And if you, at that state, reduce your mental frequency by meditating, and one that is where the Jiva Samadhi concept is linked in with meditation, as well as the sinful and the good imprints, which is your various karma concepts. We should discuss this in a much more detailed manner with some other senior professors, perhaps from India, who will be, I'm sure, much more eloquent than I have put this. But this is in simple terms. That's what this is. So this is about removing sinful imprints, the point where there's only goodness that remains. And when the mind reaches very subtle levels, the mind doesn't exist, and therefore the body and the life energy is all that remains. That sort of emanates good energy, and that's where temples like Parani, where Boga is thought to be there in a Jiva Samadhi state, people do go and pray there and meditate there, and people do experience that vibration, and they're there.
Thank you very much. I'm sure we will be doing future episodes on this genetic center and karma much more in detail. Possibly with your help, Shakti, we should be able to invite some of the Indian leaders and masters in our Meet the Master series, and this will be an ongoing series. Thank you very much for your time. I never planned this session in this way. We have started from a single-digit aged child to the ultimate enlightenment, and reaching the stage of even avoiding reincarnation and avoiding rebirth. And thank you for this very nice travel. I'm sure the audience will get benefit, and we will answer the audience questions in our future episodes. And if you permit, Shakti, can I conclude the session?
Please, yeah. Thank you so much for all the efforts that you're taking, Dr. Ananda. Really, really grateful for your time as well. And I hope people found this useful, and they should continue this more. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakti. This is only a baby step, and I hope the baby will grow into the adulthood and the enlightenment as we speak. And for people who have joined us in the YouTube, you'll be seeing the link for Dr. Shakti's first episode on Meet the Masters on your left side. There will be a button to subscribe in the center, and there will be the link to the full playlist of UK Sky Yoga section. We have a good, healthy UK group for Sky Yoga, and we are doing sessions every Saturday morning at 8:30. I've made recordings of most possible sections, and I may have missed few, and also some meditations and some poems which were very useful to hear and make ourselves enlightened. Thank you for everyone joining us, and be blessed by the divine.
Thank you.